Well, okay. So, we're on lesson number 163 of a workbook of A Course in Miracles. There is no death. The Son of God is free. And it's interesting, I just did a phone interview, which was supposed to be about 10 minutes and went for about a half hour. And I was with Carol Howe, who was a friend of Bill Thetford's. And we were talking about how in the world where, where it looks like people actually do sort of die, whatever that means, um, Bill, Bill underwent that part of the experience on July 4th, that he claimed was his Independence Day. And I'm not so sure whether or not, just like your independence comes from leaving the body as much as it comes from freeing your heart and mind, but one of the things that has occurred in my experience with what's gone on from the very beginning with the Course in Miracles and Jesus, obviously, and then Helen and Bill, is the fact that it becomes obvious, and this is based on an experience I had myself, that death, as we think of it, is impossible if life is eternal. And many people are beginning to have experiences that show them that there is no such thing as death as we sort of relate to it. One of the things that I was told, and when I began to publish the children's books, and one of the reasons why the children's books, We Are Love and We Are One, have been made available, and also a book that I published called Wisdom from Beyond, is because the children and when I say children, believe me, I understand that the nature of each child or each person is the recognition that they are a soul in the kingdom and of the kingdom. And as Jesus said, we're here to advance our record so as to no longer need a continuum where there's space and time, let's call it, and materiality, to learn the lesson that there is no death and return fearlessly and in love to our natural state or our home within the kingdom. One of the things I was shown was how souls enter into the continuum, and it's always by choice, of course. And part of what was going to occur were children who are entering in now, or souls, let's put it that way, the souls that are entering now as children were going to be gifted with the ability to remember that they had both chosen to enter and chosen their last death sequence, so to speak, as a way of helping in the celestial speed up that the atonement is bringing to everyone. And the books that are made available through Jennifer Black, We Are One and We Are Love, and the exploration cards are designed in a sense as these mandalas that when two souls, two people, a child and an adult, join together and begin to use the simple phrases and look at the pictures, it fosters a condition wherein which both of them are capable of learning much more efficiently and quickly the lessons that they're here to learn, because they foster a condition wherein which remember, where two or more are gathered, there I am. It doesn't matter. This is something that, the ego fosters differences, and the idea that like a child is different from an adult. At the level of reality, we're all souls. We are all souls in the kingdom, and all souls are created equally and wholly perfect. And that child's soul is equal and wholly perfect as my soul or your soul is. So when the energy of two souls joining together, no matter what the cognitive ages seem to be, occurs, there is the ability for Jesus and the Holy Spirit to step in and allow miraculous things to occur. And the nature of the books that Jennifer has brought forth are designed to do just that, and join the two souls at whatever cognitive ages they are in a condition that forces the ability for them to both remember more readily and more efficiently than they would if they were utilizing books that were attempting to teach other lessons, much as the nursery rhymes of the past were attempting to teach. And that's because there is no such thing as death. It's been shown to me time and time over that there's no such thing as death, and we talk about it as a sort of a transition, but I don't think there's really a way to talk about it, because we don't actually know. I've been given some information where, when Bill Thetford became a presence, Bill and Helen entered into my conscious awareness at one point in time when I was having a conversation with another woman, and there was a healing that took place between Helen and Bill. Just because when we join, we can join with anyone, anywhere within the consciousness of separation, of the separated sonship, and help each other learn lessons that we couldn't possibly learn alone, and thereby eliminating the ability for certain brothers to have to return into a physical form in order to learn lessons that we can learn with them, and we can all learn together, because joining with a soul anywhere is joining with a soul, and joining is the end of separation, and it brings forth into our awareness that which we are required to learn the ultimate lesson and live in the resurrection now as we're designed to. When I had my first experience, my first revelatory experience that I recognized as such, my question had always been, as a child, the reality of the physical resurrection. And somehow, the first thing that occurred to me when I realized it was Jesus speaking to me, was his proving to me the nature of the resurrection as being true, and the fact that he did not die, but he was able to resurrect. And I think it's very telling when he talks about his own resurrection that he says when there was nothing left in the tomb, because he no longer had any illusions. All his illusions about what life was or what death was gone, so there was nothing left to bury of him. And I've had experiences myself with the tech crew when they've shown me the world in such a way where I realized the nature was occurring as illusion, and and the ability for me as a soul to use the illusion to learn my lessons, but not be the illusion in and of itself. And I know full well that there's a way that that will come to each and every one of us individually, whereas we are allowed to be a passerby of the illusion and not undergo a death sequence. I don't know how that occurs. I do know this, and this is part of the information I was given, and part of in one of my instances of learning that I was asked to pass on. And it goes along with today's lesson. There is no death. The Son of God is free. Death is a thought. It's an idea. Ultimately, it's what humans rely on it to save them from getting the result of life. I mean, ultimately, you must get the result of all your thinking. You must get the result of your ideas. So you have to get the result of death as an idea, although the ego would like us to think that death is an idea that ends our ability to get the results of our own thinking. It doesn't. We likewise get the result of the idea of death, although we may not realize it in the physical nature until we begin to have the experience of recognizing that we've been doing this over and over again. And one of the things that I was given to understand is that each and every one of us has, because of the nature of space and time and the fact that it's going on all the time, each and every one of us in this particular sojourn has buried deep within us that one idea of the form that death will take as the trump card that we play to end what we think is existence here in space and time, as we always had before. So, and this is death is a thought that takes many forms. We all have an idea of how we will enact death in this particular sojourn. It's buried way, way deep, deep down, buried in our what we're not conscious of, our unconscious, just prior to where the miracle impulse is always rising up and presenting us with lessons that we can learn in joining with our brother to help us recognize there is no death and we've always been free and life is eternal and life is only love. So what I was shown was that each and every one of us can overcome that particular idea by allowing that idea to surface and having it converted and released so that we don't have to enact it, and we can get the result of the conversion of that idea and not go through the death sequence as an ending of life, because we're sick and tired of life as we've been leading it here in space and time, and opt for the same old wine in the same old skin. Now, part of the way in which that will occur for each and every one of us is we have what we call the attributes of heart and mind, let's say, which are attributes of our soul. You know, we talk about it, and heart being the feeling capacity and mind being the thinking capacity. Now, when we've undergone sufficient practice and training and learning to recognize through the opening of, and I'll use the chakras for a second, through the opening of our chakras, let's say, you know, the crown chakra, with the opening of our crown chakra to the fact that life is eternal. Because when our mind is open, we're in touch and in communication with that which is eternal and in eternity. It's called the Holy Spirit or Jesus or whoever. When we're in touch, when our mind is open to the kingdom and we're aware of the eternal nature as an unquestionable fact, and when our heart is open to the realization and certainty that there is only love, and our heart and our mind chakra are participating in union and harmony in the healing of the condition of guilt and fear that seems to manufacture the necessity for physical life and the idea of death as the escape from the pain of physical life. So when our heart is centered in our true foundation of love being our reality without opposite, and our mind is open and in the experience of our eternal nature, that thought that we all have that represents a form of individual death that we planned on enacting as the trump card to bring about the end of life in this particular sojourn into fear, has the ability to rise up, be converted in our heart, and recognize as being released in our mind, so that we become free from the necessity of undergoing another death experience, so as to just have to return in the same form to learn once again. Now, I understand that when I express that conceptually, there are many who are going to disagree with the concepts. But I assure you that that is the practice. Because to all of us, we give meanings to the concepts, to the words within with our own relationship with ourselves, with our own thinking. And the attempt to get it conceptually right is less important than the ability to utilize the practice in order to free our heart and our mind from the idea of conclusionary thinking and become open-minded and open-hearted, so that we can return to communication with that which is eternal and infinite, and allow ourselves to be available and utilize the infinite nature and the eternal truth that life is love. And we live in love as love. And we live in love as love eternally and infinitely, in an ever increasing and extending reality. When the joy of that begins to dawn upon us, then we no longer need death to achieve that outcome, let's say. So the idea that we had buried deep within us, that we would utilize as the trump card to bring about the end of life here, which we think is going to bring about the end of suffering, and it doesn't. That's what was shown to me in a death sequence that I went through. That as I was looking down upon my dead body, realizing that at any moment my parents would find it and think that that was me, my suffering and their suffering would not decrease or end simply because it was a continuation of a mistake that has no reality and no one need to suffer from. In that instant, I returned, came back into the physical experience in order to continue to learn the lesson that there is no death and the Holy Son of God is free. And I am that Holy Son of God along with you as well. So now, when we enter into the practice that frees us of erroneous thinking and ideas and thoughts, and we become enlivened and refreshed and rejuvenated through the certainty of love as being our eternal and infinite reality, because our heart and our minds are open to that, and only that because we've eliminated all the opposites and opposition through forgiveness, then we have the ability to bring about the end of this sojourn that doesn't indicate death, but represents the ongoing fact that life is eternal. That life, it has infinite ability to renew and express love, and that love is our only reality. So there is no death. The Holy Son of God is free, and you and I are that Holy Son of God. It's a son because it's the fulfillment of potential. There's no lack of fulfillment within the esoteric idea of male. Whereas the esoteric idea of female was always the ability to the potential that needed to be fulfilled. There's no lack of fulfillment within reality, within God and within his son in that sense. It's not got to do with gender. It has to do with an attempt to represent ideas that go way, way back to initial realizations. So there's no death. You can't die in that sense. Death does not. The important thing for me to have learned was, in my experience, was death did not solve my problem. Death was not a solution to the problems that I was experiencing here in the world of space and time. So that it was senseless to enact death in order to think that I had solved the problem. I wanted a solution that no longer required the ability for the problems to continue. And that's what forgiveness offers, and ultimately the escape from the world of space and time based on the recognition that this is not life, but life is eternal, infinite, and only love, is the solution to a problem that doesn't exist, but exists as an idea of a problem in an illusionary world that cannot possibly be true in reality. And that's my purpose. And ultimately, it's everybody's purpose because it's their reality and everybody wants to return home. So thanks for that.